Welcome to the wonderful world of integrated video technology. My name is Mr. Bull and this is my digital presentation. I would like to argue that being a great teacher is analogous to building and sustaining a great fire. A true inferno starts when kindling is engulfed by a dry heat. Oh, it must be dry and proper for the flame to ignite. Secondly, ye must incubate the spark and apply small tinder and kindling upon. You can't just put a great and mighty log upon the hearth, or you will quench its wrath and you will be left with nil. Lastly, ye must take pains to ensure that the fire is well stoked. This means integrating sturdy practice and material that will alight for hours and burn into the seething abyss. If ye be a wise teacher, ye must be like the fires of old and burn with an intensity that is apparent only when the three inseparable necessities have come together. As a first-year teacher, I had to cultivate my own personal knowledge of my students, my subject, and how students can become powerfully literate. Standard 1 of the stellar system can be seen as the dry heat and small kindling that has to be ignited. I will use my Year 8 history class as an example. During my time, I spent 3 weeks with them making a portfolio of the Noosa region that incorporated a great many facts and a number of activities. It was a laborious, compulsory exercise, but it had to be done. However, I was able to lessen the burden by my personal endeavour to integrate with my class. For one, I made an effort to know the students on a personal level in order to cultivate sympathy and understanding. This worked both ways, as the students were able to see me as a human and not just as a teacher. By knowing my students, I was able to relate to them in a way that gained respect and made it easy to motivate work. This was helped because they saw me as someone in the know, so to say. By my command of my area, I became seen as an invaluable resource that was able to help and motivate students when they felt unable to ignite. By being informed about contemporary issues and debates regarding language, literacy, and literature, I myself also felt comfortable in my pontifications. However, I know that teaching is an ever-changing field, and I will always endeavour to keep up with the latest developments and theories. One way I was able to encourage literacy skills was done by providing students with a variety of ways of using language and acquiring new knowledge within the classroom. For example, the booklets they created asked them to answer questions, draw pictures, research on the net, integrate ICT into their workbooks, and create their own indigenous, historically orientated story. The time and structure of this activity let students work at their own individual rate, and they completed tasks in a way that built up their confidence. These efforts provided the dry heat that enabled the elements to transform. When the dry heat has transformed into red amber, ye must take heed not to let it go out. That means making proper preparation and gathering of essential materials. Ye must build the fire up slowly. This is exactly what must be done according to Standard 2 of the Stellar Plan. Teachers must plan for effective learning to take place. I will admit that at first I thought I could get away with minimal planning. But this was a horrible error that nearly resulted in the extinction of the flame. I realized this early on though, gauging student behavior and effort in response to my own effort. When I realized this spark needed to be helped along, I swore to make the best lesson plans I could that would account for diversity, different attention spans, and individual learning needs. I could see the difference immediately as the students engaged with the essential materials incorporated into my new lesson plans. The structure that lesson plans provided allowed the students to fit into a pattern that I could easily oversee throughout the duration of a 1-hour period. By knowing what was happening and at what time, I could cater for students who excelled and those who lagged behind. It also gave me the opportunity to maintain order in the class. John, an unruly Year 8 lad who was the ringleader of the class hooligans, would often get up to his old tricks during my first weeks of prac. But after I started with the new planning notion, he was obviously more engaged, and when he or others did misbehave, I had a pre-planned disciplinary methods that quickly became standard and ensured students kept learning. By tracking my lessons formally and informally, I was able to reflect on what I did well and what I did badly. This helped me to prepare for future lessons and gave me invaluable insight into what students responded to and what they despised. Stellar 2 on professional practice must be used in order to cultivate the flame that will become the beacon of the night. Professional engagement is the heavy, long burning timber that the flame must engulf to sustain itself into the nocturnal hour. To maintain the first two standards, proper professional engagement must be infused into the teaching experience. I was able to do this with my Year 8 class in a number of ways. Firstly, by trying to improve my lessons and my personal reliability, I demonstrated proper commitment to them. Teachers must be committed to maximizing each student's capacity to become critical users of language. This will not happen if the teacher does not remain enthusiastic about teaching and welcome the challenge of planning enjoyable lessons. I did this with my Year 8s by presenting a persona of enthusiasm and amiability that convinced the students I cared about what I was teaching them, especially when they were doing their research booklets. If the teacher is not enthused about what they are teaching, how is the student going to be enthused about the content? They can't! And the fire will go back to the dust from whence it came. To maintain this essential enthusiasm, teachers must be willing to learn from the students and from teachers. On prac, I was able to sit in on some interesting PDs and learnt a great deal about how to do English practically. Similarly, the interesting things I learnt from my Year 8s inspired me to be a better teacher in order to further cultivate their minds. To burn, one must be enthused. Thus, the essential need to participate in academic study, classroom-based action research, integrating with parents, becoming part of the community, and many other things. Participating in such activities will be enriching if one is open to change and is interested in scrutinizing and reviewing their personal beliefs. As a first-year teacher, I will strive to live this standard. I know a little, but not very much. What I do know, though, is that teaching is like an ever-changing organic combustion of dry elements. Stellar 1 is the spark, Stellar 2 is the kindling, and Stellar 3 is our fully stoked fire. And it is my prayer that I will be able to be like this fire, a fire that integrates all the stellar standards in order to be the best teacher I can be, for myself and my students.